Sounds like football, baby.
What up, and welcome into the Fantasy Football Smackdown. I'm your host, Kyle August. You can follow me on Twitter at KyleMonth8. It is Tuesday, September 14th. We're getting you set for the waiver wire heading into week 2 of the NFL season. Hopefully, you guys had a successful week 1, got some W's. If you didn't, don't fret. Long season still to go. I know I made a couple bad lineup decisions that I'm regretting already, but that's the joy of this game, and that's why we love it. It's just agonizing sometimes when you're watching those decisions quickly go the opposite way. But don't worry, we are going to be set for the long haul here on the Dynasty Warzone Network. So appreciate you tuning into this show. If you haven't noticed already, we have a jam-packed slate of content coming at you pretty much every single day here on the network. So number one, make sure you're subscribed wherever you listen to podcasts. Number two, make sure you're subscribed, notifications turned on, everything on YouTube, because we have a bunch of live shows coming at you every single week, including this very show, the Fantasy Football Smackdown, is going to be back here every single Thursday, 7 p.m. Eastern time, ahead of Thursday Night Football. So again, that's 7 p.m. Eastern time every Thursday. I'm going to bring some of my favorite starts and sits, and then I'm going to be answering your questions live here on the show. So come hang out. And then on Sunday as well, we're doing a live show. Memphis did a 90-minute pregame show before kickoff, answering all your questions, last-minute news items. Had some breaking news, including some late inactives. So you got our instant takes right live here on YouTube. So make sure you're subscribed. But again, the Fantasy Football Smackdown, covering the waiver wire, getting you set 7 p.m. Eastern time every Thursday, those start sits. And then do not forget, YouTube only, waiver wire sniping. I give you all the names that you need to know, the players that you should stash on the end of your bench before kickoff each and every week, so that you don't have to fret. You don't have to worry about putting in these waiver claims or wasting your fab money. Just pick them up for free. But if you missed out on week 1, I got you covered. These are the guys that you need to know heading into week 2 here. So without further ado, let's just do this thing right now. We're going to roll right into it. So if you're watching on YouTube, you're going to get to see all the pictures, all the stats, all the numbers I got here for you. But so you can always check the show out there. But let's just roll my top 3 ads, regardless of position. These are your top priorities for the week. Far and away, obviously, I think the headliner is going to be everywhere, is Elijah Mitchell. He's 8% owned in Yahoo leagues. I'm using a 50% threshold for ownership. So if you find guys that are over 50% owned and they're not factored in here, that is why. Mitchell, for me, though, is going to be the guy to add. Raheem Mostert, we already know, is going to be out 8 weeks. Jeff Wilson might be a backfield for him. So Mitchell might not be the guy all season long. Trey Sermon, I still believe in, is going to eventually get his shake here. And I still think he'll overtake Mitchell long term. But I am putting some decent fab money on Elijah Mitchell if I'm a running back needy team. I put at least 20% on Mitchell, and you're going to have to pay up because he is the guy. So a lot of people are going to be going after him. So if you want him, you got to go pay up for him. So number 2 on my list, regardless of position, is Sterling Shepard, 39% owned. He had a big game, over 100 yards, found pay dirt. He's got a short week at Washington this week. Be my number 2 ad. And number 3, he's 48% owned. I know he didn't have a big game. He had some decent reception totals, but Darnell Mooney, he was on the field nonstop for the Chicago Bears. He's clearly far and away the number 2 wide receiver there. I think better days ahead for him and that offense. So there you go. There's my top 3 regardless of position. Let's dive into the positions here. Quarterbacks, the streamers, the top ad for me. I know Jameis is going to be the headliner for a lot of people. He's coming off a 5-touchdown game, but obviously not many yards if you were paying attention this weekend. My number 1 QB ad is actually Ben Roethlisberger, who's owned in less leagues, 39%. He's going up against the Las Vegas Raiders, who actually, for full disclosure, are playing right now as I'm recording this. But that's a defense that I don't really trust to slow many people down. I think Roethlisberger at home against the Raiders on a short week, with the Raiders just playing now on Monday night, that is the play. Also, when you factor in that you could play Ben Roethlisberger for 2 weeks, because week 3 he has Cincinnati at home. Ben Roethlisberger is my number 1 QB ad this week, followed by Jameis Winston against Carolina, 44% owned. He's definitely a guy you consider, but he has a tough matchup against New England in week 3. Rounding out the top 5 at quarterback, Teddy Bridgewater at Jacksonville this week, 11% owned. He also has the Jets in week 3, so that could be a 2-week play for you. Mac Jones is my QB4. He has the Jets this week, 26% owned. And then Tyrod Taylor coming off a big game against the Jags. This guy runs the ball, so you know he's going to be fantasy relevant. He's only 4% owned. He has the Browns this week, which is a tougher matchup, but then gets Carolina in week 3. So some of these guys are going to be featured again on waiver wire sniping, I can expect. But again, Big Ben, Jameis Winston, Teddy Bridgewater, Mac Jones, Tyrod Taylor. Those are your top 5 quarterback ads if you're looking for streamer types. 2 stash candidates. These are far and away the easiest names to continue to put on this list. Justin Fields is 51% owned, but if he is available, you need to add him. He will be starting sooner rather than later. And Trey Lance, 45% owned. If you're looking for a stash, if you're starting guys like Bridgewater, Jones, or Taylor, you need to be stashing these guys as hopefully future starters for your team. Do not forget in Superflex leagues, Taylor Heineke is going to be the starter for the Washington football team. He's playing on Thursday, filling in for Ryan Fitzmagic, who's going to be out for an extended period of time. So Heineke is available everywhere. Taylor Heineke, he is your Superflex ad for sure. Even over, for me, even over Mitchell, he would be your top ad because quarterbacks are so damn valuable. Drop candidates of the position. I don't have a ton of names for drop candidates on this show because I am going to preach patience a bit. It's only week 1. But I don't mind cutting bait. Get out, Matt Ryan. See ya, deuces. It's been real shitty. The dude laid an egg week 1 in an easy matchup at home. Now he's going to play Tampa Bay in week 2. Cut this guy off your roster. Pick up any of those other quarterbacks. I am donezo with Matty Ice. Maybe we'll see you later in the year, bro. But for now, you're off my team. 73% owned is insanity. Moving on to the running back position. Now, as I talked about, Elijah Mitchell is my number 1 ad. He's 8% owned. He is the guy to own. To pick up this week off the waiver wire heading into week 2. I will say this. I'm going to preach some patience just a bit here. There are some names that I like, but I think you are going to find that there are going to be some players in your league that are going to freak out on players that they shouldn't after just 1 week of the NFL season. If you don't, I don't mind putting in a bid for Mitchell just to see. You can go as hard as you want. Maybe you just go a little bit light on him. But then behind that, I kind of like the strategy of maybe sitting back, seeing what happens here a bit, and maybe scooping somebody else up off of the second round of waivers once you see who is dropped in your league. So I would definitely consider that, maybe saving some fab, saving that priority, kind of sitting back, seeing how it works, and then going from there. So Mitchell, far away, though, is the top ad across the board, and he's the number 1 running back ad. Again, only 8% owned in Yahoo. Number 2 for me is actually James White. I like what I saw from him. He had over 5 receptions, which is great. That's what you want to see from a passing downs running back. Got 4 carries. Damian Harris and Ramondre Stevenson both fumbled. So does James White, does that carry number go to maybe 7, 8, 10? That would be great. But I think regardless, James White in PPR should be added. Only 33% owned. He's the clear passing downs back, and in an offense that will feature one with Mac Jones under center. Number 3 is Kenneth Gainwell. This was the only other Philadelphia running back to touch the ball besides Miles Sanders. He had 9 carries, 37 yards, had that rushing touchdown, had 2 catches, didn't do much with it, but only 8% owned. Gainwell is far and away the running back to own behind Miles Sanders. Boston Scott was active, played 0 snaps. Number 4 running back for me is Tony Jones Jr. The dude saw 11 carries week 1 in that blowout win against the Packers. I still think this is the guy to own as far as obviously the backup there in New Orleans. So I don't mind stashing him away just a bit. I actually have him ahead of a guy that just racked up 26 carries in Mark Ingram, who comes in at number 5 on my list. They're both owned at about 20% of leagues. So my top 5 running backs overall, again, Elijah Mitchell, James White, Kenneth Gainwell, Tony Jones Jr., Mark Ingram. But Mark Ingram is kind of in a tier way lower than the rest of these guys. For me, I do not trust that, but I do think he's obviously the lead dog there in Houston. So take that for what it's worth. Not sure how many times they're going to have positive game script for him. Deeper league ads. Here's a few names that you can take a look on, even in your deepest of leagues, maybe even some dynasty rosters. Wayne Gallman, he was an inactive on a Sunday. I still like stashing him away. I do not really trust Davis to hold down that role. I think Gallman could be the better running back there once he gets a little bit more acclimated with his team. My guess, what I'd like to see is him, I want him on my rosters one more week. I just want to see him get in the game against Tampa Bay. Doesn't need to do much in week 2, but I just want him active, couple carries, and then we'll see how this goes. Number 2 is actually his teammate, Cordero Patterson. He's 3% owned. He was featured a lot in this offense. It's kind of hedging a little bit too. If Gallman isn't the man, I think Patterson's still going to see some work throughout the year. But if you're in a deep league, Patterson's a guy that you could look to stash. And then number 3 for me is Alex Collins, 1% owned. Rashad Penny's already down for the count. He could be put on IR by the time you guys are listening to this. And Collins and him, we're going head-to-head for that backup role behind Chris Carson. So if you're in a deeper league, Alex Collins needs to be stashed. 2 drop candidates here. Sony Michel did not see a snap until the second half. He's 72% owned, and Zach Moss, 71% owned, wasn't healthy and active as well. These guys aren't clear-cut drop everywhere, but I would definitely drop Sony Michel and Zach Moss for my top 3 guys that I mentioned here, Mitchell, White, and Gainwell. I think you can move on from those guys, especially in PPR for sure. Like, it's not even a contest really, but those are some potential drop candidates if you're looking. But Mitchell, far and away the best, but some decent running backs here, especially if you're looking for PPR, because I think Gainwell can be a James White-ish player for you. Moving on to the wide receivers, I mentioned he was my number 2 overall ad. It's Sterling Shepard. He is only 39% owned. We're going to see him on a quick week here playing on Thursday Night Football. Dude had 9 targets. He led the team in targets and receptions. He had 7 receptions for 113 yards and a touchdown in a tougher matchup against the Denver Broncos. We'll see Kenny Golladay working his way in a little bit more, and same thing with Saquon Barkley. So I don't think Shepard, with these numbers, you could point as like, oh, is he a wide receiver too? I think he's just a flex option. He's a depth piece. But if you're looking to move on maybe from some of the other guys that you had as flyers, Shepard could be an easy pivot. Number 2 is Darnell Mooney for me. He had the 5 catches, but he had 7 targets. That was tied for second on the team, and he played a ton of snaps. He was right there with Allen Robinson on snap rate, so I like his upside. He's under 50% owned, so he makes the list. We're going to drop a bit down now. With the injury to Jerry Jeudy, Tim Patrick becomes very interesting. This is a guy that flashed last year with Cortland Sutton down. He has the Jacksonville Jaguars this week, but I'm not adding Patrick for just a stream option this week. While I think you can still play him in maybe some 14-team or deeper leagues, PPR. The guy had a touchdown this last week. Again, that seems to be what he does. He had a nice touchdown streak last season when he was filling in. Again, only 2% owned. Tim Patrick's my number 3 wide receiver ad. Number 4, speaking of touchdowns, Zach Pascal, 2 touchdowns last week. I had him on my waiver wire sniping article or podcast, so maybe you added him already. I know I started him in a few deep leagues. He led all the receivers and tight ends. Amongst them, he was the leader in targets. Now, we saw Nyheim Hines get a ton of looks, so that offense will feature the running backs. But I think Pascal is the number 2 wide receiver there behind Pittman, and it's closer than a lot of people think, especially when you look at the fact that Pascal's the 3rd wide receiver as far as ownership goes at only 1% owned. He should be a very under the radar but popular ad this week, in my opinion. And my last one, 42% owned. He has tough matchups the next 2 weeks, but Elijah Moore for the Jets. He played a ton of snaps with Keelan Cole and Jamison Crowder out. Now, those 2 could be back, but Moore is still a guy that I really, really do believe in the talent. If I can just stash a guy away, this is a guy that I am looking to stash for sure still in leagues. If his ownership percentage dips, I'm definitely taking a jump on that. Deeper league adds the position for the wide receiver. Number 1 for me is actually Cedric Wilson, 0% owned. Dallas Cowboys wide receiver. Be filling in for Michael Gallup, who's out 3 to 5 weeks. Based off where the Cowboys bye week is, the Cowboys could just hold him out for that entire term, 5 weeks, sit on him for the bye week right after that, and then bring him back into this offense. But regardless, Gallup was placed on IR, so he's going to miss at least 3 weeks, and Wilson needs to be a priority ad in deeper leagues. Again, 0% owned in Yahoo leagues. Number 2 for me, only 3% owned, is Allen Lazard. I know that even for me, Randall Cobb was getting, hyped up a bit because Aaron Rodgers brought him into town and everything. Lazard was still being played as far as snap percentage, like the number 2 wide receiver. Better days ahead for this Green Bay offense. Obviously, they get the Detroit Lions on Monday Night Football. So again, Lazard 3% owned. He's a guy that I'm interested in. Number 3 on this list is KJ Hamler. He had just as many targets as Tim Patrick. He dropped a deep touchdown pass in that game, so that was disappointing. But I like the talent for this younger receiver. He's going to get his opportunities while Jerry Jeudy's out. And I do prefer Patrick. And again, I didn't put Hamler into that top 5 of that other list, but I think he's definitely deserving here of this deeper league ads and should be owned in more leagues. Number 4, we're going with another KJ Osborne, the wide receiver for the Minnesota Vikings, who was actually tied with Justin Jefferson with 9 targets. He hauled in 7 of them for 76 yards. Now, Cousins threw the ball 49 times on Sunday. I don't really expect that to happen. It was almost 4.5 quarters worth of football going the full length of overtime. So I don't know that I expect, both or all of Thielen, Jefferson, and Osborne to all get 7 or 9 plus targets. But I think Osborne could be a guy that you stash away in some deeper leagues, deeper PPR. He's 0% owned. As they try to figure out their tight end situation without Irv Smith, it could be that they go with 3 wide receiver sets, and he could be the beneficiary there. Number 5 on this list, I was disappointed to see, obviously, the injury to Ryan Fitzpatrick, because I think this guy would have had a better stat line on Sunday and a better outlook going forward. But I still like the idea of stashing Diami Brown. He's 2% owned. Now, I do think with Heineke under center, McLaurin still should be okay. Not too worried there. I think he's more of a high-end 2 now than a low-end 1. And then you're going to see Logan Thomas and potentially McKissick get a little bump as well. But Brown only 2% owned. He was clear, far and away, the next guy behind McLaurin as far as snaps. He played all but 4 snaps for Washington, and that's big time for a rookie. So Diami Brown is on this list as well. So wide receivers, again, my top 5 overall: Shepard is 39% owned, Mooney is 48% owned, Tim Patrick, Pascal, those guys are under 5% owned, and then Elijah Moore. Those deeper league ads: Cedric Wilson, Alan Lazard, KJ Hamler, KJ Osborne, and Diami Brown routes out the top 5 of the deep league ads. Moving on to the tight ends. These are some different names than I thought I'd be talking about today. I did have this guy as my third tight end as a potential streaming waiver wire sniping pick last week, but he moves to the top of the list for me. It's Cole Kmet, 34% owned. The Bears are going up against the Cincinnati Bengals at home. Kmet played about 75% of the snaps, which is great to see with Jimmy Graham still in town. He had 7 targets, 5 receptions for 42 yards. And I thought he looked good. There were some other opportunities for him as well that they didn't really cash in on, that I think he could add an even bigger game. So he's my top streaming tight end option as far as the guys that are readily available in your leagues. My number 2 tight end ad is actually Adam Troutman, which is going to be different than a lot of what you're hearing about probably with the Juwan Johnson hype train. You know, him getting in the end zone and everything was great, but Johnson only played 19% of the snaps. Troutman played 82% of those snaps and was still running routes quite a bit. So Troutman, 11% owned at Carolina. I like Kmet a bit more, but then Adam Troutman will be my number 2 ad. Number 3 on this ad, if you're looking from a pure streamer, he might actually be better than Troutman this week. His snap percentage was pretty even with fellow teammate Daniel Parham, but Jared Cook, 26% owned. I talked about him on the Waiver Wire Sniping podcast. Cook is going to be in the shootout. It's going to be the highest over-under of the week for sure. Dallas and the Chargers in LA. Cook is definitely a high targeted streaming option this week. So if you're looking for a pure streamer, it's probably Kmet, Cook, Troutman. But if I'm looking for just ads of streamer types, I'll go Kmet, Troutman, Cook as far as the tight end hierarchy goes, my waiver wire. Number 4, I wanted to put this guy on here. I didn't have 5 tight ends, but I did have one more. It's Blake Jarwin. With Michael Gallup out, I think Cedric Wilson should see some decent snaps and targets, but hope maybe Jarwin will get a little bit more love in week 2. He was splitting with Dalton Schultz just a bit, but Jarwin's working his way back from that injury, so that could be part of it. He's only 15% owned, so maybe in a deeper league, that could be a guy that you're looking to stash. So some stash and deep league ads. A stash candidate for me is Evan Ingram. I don't expect him to play in week 2, but I have some names as far as some potential drop candidates that if you were starting one of those guys, maybe you're streaming Jared Cook, Evan Ingram only 37% owned, should definitely be added because I think he can be a top 12 tight end when he's out there. A couple of deeper league names at the tight end position. Tyler Conklin for the Minnesota Vikings. He's only 5% owned. He was the clear receiving option as far as the tight end goes for the Minnesota Vikings. Again, Minnesota threw the ball a lot, so I don't know that volume will be there, but if you're in deeper leagues, 2 tight end leagues, that's a guy that if he's not already owned, he should be. And then super deep, 0% owned, James O'Shaughnessy from the Jacksonville Jags. The dude ran 44 routes on 56 pass attempts. This is a team that's going to throw the ball a ton. Now, I believe it was Manhurts is the one who scored the touchdown as far as the tight ends go for Jacksonville, but O'Shaughnessy should be the tight end to own as of right now in Jacksonville. So if you're in super deep leagues, that is a guy that could be available. So go dig deep, bottom of the barrel for that one. Few drop candidates at tight end. I do have these for you. Mike Gesicki, 84% owned. I don't know what the hell was going on with his snap percentage. He only got 1 target in that game. It was definitely concerning. This isn't a straight just drop across the board, but 84% owned. You could look to if there's another guy, maybe none of these guys. Like I would take Gesicki still over Kmet. But if there's somebody out there like maybe a Jonnu Smith, maybe Gronk wasn't drafted in your leagues, I might look to pivot to those guys right now. No need to wait. Keep in mind, Miami did not have Will Fuller as well, so there's one more mouth to feed for the Miami Dolphins. So Gesicki, I'm a little bit worried about. Last two candidates for me, Gerald Everett, 66% owned. I know he hit pay dirt, but he was right there with Dillesley as far as pretty much targets and snaps and routes. And, so I'm a little bit concerned about Gerald Everett. I would drop Gerald Everett for Cole Kmet or a streaming option like Cook or Troutman this week. I just don't really love what I saw from him in week one. If you want to wait it out, I totally get it. It's not an auto drop by any means, but that's one candidate. And then Austin Hooper is the last one. I featured him on the Waiver Wire sniping article podcast. I thought that he was going to be my favorite tight end streamer this week. He's 53% owned, so he's right on that edge. But man, three catches in that first drive and then done. No more targets, no more looks. David Njoku was out there with 70+ receiving yards. Bryant's still in the mix there for that tight end group. So it should be there should be opportunities for Cleveland this week, but he's a guy that at 53% owned, again, if there's somebody else that maybe is a little bit over the ownership threshold that wasn't mentioned here that's available, even Cole Kmet, I would make that swap right now. Just a little bit disappointing for what we saw from Austin Hooper against Kansas City in week one. So still fine holding these guys, but just a note as far as if you're looking to pivot to another tight end. So that's it. Hope you guys enjoyed the show. The Waiver Wire is upon us already. Again, I would preach a little bit of patience. Unless it's Mitchell, I might just kind of dial it back a bit. But never hurts to also look on your waiver wire just to see if there's anybody else that snuck through that's still out there. I use a 50% threshold, so there could be some guys available in your league that you might want to take a peek at. But otherwise, if these are the same guys that you're looking at, everyone we talked about today, I might kind of sit back just a bit and see who is dropped, who's panicking already. And then even if nobody is, you can still go out there and maybe pick up a Pascal or a KJ Hamler for free. Maybe even Tony Jones Jr., these guys that won't be as sought after. But appreciate you guys checking out the show. Going to be back here tomorrow on the Warzone Network. Jerry and Memphis holding it down. I will be back here Thursday, 7 p.m. Eastern time, covering starts and sits and answering your questions. So come join me. Let's have some fun. 7 p.m. Eastern time Thursday. I'll catch you then.